This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
The Arkansas Supreme Court did something it almost never does. It yanked a sitting judge off a case. Not once, but effectively twice. Judge Barbara Elmore has already been slapped down last May when the High Court called her gag order a plain, manifest, clear, and gross abuse of discretion. That's some stiff words there. 7 months later, she pulled the same move with different clothes, limiting the trial to 55 people, banning cameras, no overflow room. The Supreme Court didn't just reverse her this time, they removed her entirely and appointed a retired judge from the other side of the state to take over. Defense attorney Bob Motta is with us now to break down what this means and what it tells us about how Aaron Spencer's case has been handled from day one. Bob, welcome. I know you were on the road. You were there. You were ready for this. And then the Arkansas Supreme Court stepped in and removed the judge. It's rather extraordinary. In your experience, what does it take for the state's highest court to reach that conclusion? And what does it signal about how they viewed Elmore's conduct?
Hey, T. Yeah, it was a quick turnaround, my friend. 20 hours of driving in 30 out of 36. So, yeah, it was because I didn't want to get trapped down there because the snow cripples Arkansas. It was stunning, frankly. And especially with the speed in which it came and the element of the fact that we're on the eve of trial. You know, the timing of it is what made it so stunning because we're literally just leaving a hearing wherein she had set jury to start getting selected. She had shifted it a little bit. She had moved it from Monday to Thursday in terms of jury selection, and then trial was going to start on February 2nd, that following Monday. So, and it was a very short hearing. You know, I had driven down. I'm like, short hearing. And we're in the car. We went back to my uncle's pact. We're like, we have to beat the storm to get out. And we get the news, the stunning news of the Supreme Court, Arkansas Supreme Court had decided to pull her card. And I was elated first and foremost, but I was also shocked because it's just so close in time and it speaks volumes. And I thought that we saw a precursor. We knew that there were three of the justices that were not fans of her work on this case. And we knew that from the opinion when they pulled her gag order and vacated that early on in the case. So we knew because there was some very, very terse language with respect to her and her treatment of that case up to that point. So like in the back of my mind, and we were talking about it off camera, you know, you're like, you know, I thought that there was a possibility, but like, yeah, you were like, yeah, but not that much. You didn't drive down. You're like, yeah, right. Exactly. You know, I had to assume that this thing was going to move forward because it's such a rare occurrence. So I think that it really shows just the displeasure of the Supreme Court of Arkansas, who has really earned a lot of respect from me and I think a lot of lawyers around the country in terms of their ability to be able to do what they feel is the right thing, no matter what time in the trial it is, because, you know, pulling the judge, and it's not as simple as another judge just goes and sits on the bench and they're like, let's go. You know, that judge, and it's retired Judge Rolf Wilson is going to be taking the place of Judge Elmore. And he did it for 31 years. By all accounts, he seems to have been a fine judge. You know, I did a little digging into him, you know, CASA, who are, you know, advocate for children. You know, they're literally an agency that works with the courts to advocate for kids. You know, wrote him a glowing retirement thank you, which goes a long way in my world, you know, because I mean, they had no obligation to do that. And I think that he had an impact on a lot of children. And in this case in particular, that's very significant because of obviously the background of why we're here. And he's going to need to get acclimated. He's going to need to know what the procedural posture is. And I have, I fully believe that Aaron Casanelli and Michael Kaiser, who are Aaron Spencer's attorneys, are going to be filing motions asking Judge Wilson to take a peek and reconsider various rulings that Judge Elmore has made during the course of the procedural process leading up to trial. So, I mean, there's stuff that needs to be done before the thing can go to trial with the new judge. But I'm very happy with the choice.
Let me ask you this, and I don't want to sidetrack the discussion, but what happens to this judge now that, judge is removed? Does anything happen after this in the shadows, in the background? What happens to a judge who's been removed from a case? Life as normal, or are there disciplinary things? Is there a review? What happens?
There can be somebody that to file a complaint with the Judicial Overseeing Board in Arkansas, whatever they may call it. It has different names in every state. The one thing about Elmore is she was retiring anyway. Mm-hmm. So, like, in terms of the timing of that, it wasn't like she got booted and she said, "Oh, I'm retiring." It was, "I'm retiring," and like at the end of my term, and then she got booted. So she was planning on leaving the bench anyway. But just in general, no. I mean, not really, unless somebody makes a formal complaint. And the problem is, it's really tough to ding a judge just because there's that kind of lurking worry from, the boards that oversee judges, that they don't want to hammer judges unless it's completely necessary, because they don't want to undermine the confidence of the public in our judiciary. It's like you have to have a judge that's gone like off the rails, like a judge is up there hammering vodka, from her little thermal insulated thing.
Not that anybody'd be doing that.
No, not that anybody'd be doing that. Or they have to do something that's completely untoward, maybe nothing that even relates to something that they've done on the bench. If they catch a DUI, things like that, that can get to a judge. But in terms of their discretion or lack thereof, or if they kind of slipped into the world where I think Elmore had slipped, which was that she had lost all impartiality. She was clearly a stateside judge on this case. And Tony and I and you, Stace, we've talked about this. Like, we don't necessarily understand why this case is moving forward. We didn't necessarily understand why the judge seemed to be offering protection, not only to the state, but to the state's case in some of her rulings. And it was clearly enough for the Arkansas Supreme Court to say enough is enough.
Yeah.
We're pulling it. So, in terms of if she's going to see any kind of backlash after the fact, I would not hold your breath.
Should there be, because I know exactly what you're saying there, you don't want to undermine the confidence in the judiciary. Is that kind of a pipe dream, though, at this point to the judiciary, when they're looking down or they're looking out at the common folks who are relying on them to enforce the laws? This idea that the general public has confidence in them to begin with, because I think that's been shaken at timer 500, and maybe there isn't quite the confidence there that they like to subscribe on themselves. Should there be more judges that are called on the carpet? And maybe not just because they're sipping, their vodka and lime on the bench. Should there be more calling it? To me, obviously we do true crime every day. So you and me, we see the worst of the worst, and we see some of the most extreme cases. But if there was more accountability, if more judges were called on the carpet, I think I'd have more confidence in the system, because as it sits right now, I have very little compared to what we have seen out there. I mean, maybe that bar needs to be lowered, and the ego of the public relies on us for our confidence. We don't want to undermine the conflict. Fuck that. They already don't trust you. Give them something to trust.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, man. And I oddly enough, I was thinking the exact same thing. There's two different scenarios though, right? There's the one that get the dings for, being shitty in terms of the way that they're performing at their job. And then there's the ones that we were talking about that are doing untoward things that will reflect poorly on the judiciary overall if they left that person on the bench. I agree 1,000%. Because I immediately, like I said, right from the get, like the level of respect that I have for the Arkansas Supreme Court.
Yeah.
to pull the trigger on this shit at this point in time, that close to trial. I'm like, wow, thank you for doing that. Thank you. That restores faith in the system.
Exactly.
That there's people out there that give a shit about what's going on in these courts, and they're not afraid to do something about it.
We have so many institutions that, in principle are good. Like, we need police, we need judges, we need these sort of things. But when these institutions start falling flat, when there starts to be corruption, these institutions and some people in them like to just keep shutting their ears off, going, la, 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 everything's great, when they're not.
Yes.
And the prime example here is the Supreme Court going and saying, yeah, that's screwed up. This is under our purview. We're going to correct this. More institutions need to start admitting fault when fault is due. It doesn't weaken confidence in someone or an institution when the institution says, we can do better, we can fix it. It weakens confidence when it says everything is A-okay and everything is chaotic as fuck.
Yes. And this was,
look at Minneapolis.
100%.
I was just thinking
everything's great. Everything's fine. It's not.
Yeah, it's like that scene from Airplane or wherever, where Leslie Nielsen saying, "Everybody remain calm," and everybody
exactly. It's just like people are done being placated to, and the bullshit you could used to say to somebody years ago and have the people blindly follow it are over. There's 100%. Too many ways to get the information they want, and there's too many ways for them to then go into their own little subsect community of whatever viewpoint they have, and then get indoctrinated there. And then do whatever they're going to do. But this idea that it's just, we're strong, we're this, we're that, it's like, no, you're not. More Americans don't get their news from ABC News than from any other source anymore. But, it's things like that. It's these sayings that are said over and over. And they used to work. They don't anymore. But too many people are in power that think they do.
Yes. Well, I think is that generation that is the generation that's still in power, primarily the boomers. As they start to retire and pass away, things are going to change because, as you said, with our ability to be able to access nearly everything that's going on in any court that we choose to look into, in terms of whether it's trials are being streamed, pretrial hearings are being streamed, access to the documents, whatever the case may be, as interested as you are and as much work as you're willing to put into it, you are going to have the ability to see what the hell is going on in these courts. And times they done up and changed. Yeah. So that feeling of, hey, we're kind of impervious because they really don't know what the hell's going on here anyway, and we're kind of shielded from them knowing, that doesn't exist anymore. We know everything.
Yeah,
or
we do.
as much as we can without doing illegal shit in order to get the information that we're seeking. And that creates accountability, which is the whole purpose of public trials. So the other shoe is dropped, and we're going to start seeing it, the accountability that's going to be held to judges, to prosecutors, to everybody in the entire justice system. The bar's been raised. Because when we're saying all eyes are on you, all eyes are on this case, we mean it. And when there's eyes on cases, you're gonna straighten your tie a little more. You're gonna make sure that you got the scuff off your shoe, and you're gonna make sure that you're prepared to go to trial, and you're gonna be prepared to do your job properly, because a hell of a lot more people are looking at it. Whereas in the past, shit was happening with nobody really having any idea on what was going on. And, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of cases that churn through the system. You know what I'm saying? So, your point's really well taken.
And I was making an observation on this the other night, because I feel like, this is a small town, and there's a lot of small towns that, they got their cases and stuff. But small towns for a long period of time in our history had levers that held authority accountable. There were small town newspapers. Sometimes you'd have your little local radio station or whatever, and they would report on what was going on. About 15 years ago, all that died. The local newspapers went away. The local radio stations, if they even exist, there's nobody there. Nobody is reporting on what's going on in local communities. So I feel like we kind of regressed in time in terms of accountability for local authority figures, because well, suddenly there's nobody from the newspaper asking questions.
Right.
There's no radio person. There's nobody. I mean, unless you're larger city and they're coming in to cover your little case, which is few and far between.
Yep.
You're kind of able to get away with shit carte blanche. And
Yeah,
I
where's
wonder
your accountability?
I wonder if they really got comfortable with this in the last 10 to 15 years of little local accountability. And they really, in so many of these cases, did not see what was going to happen next. Meaning there's a gazillion of us, Bob,
Yes.
that are out there and energizing people and making them aware of this shit far beyond the population of their small town ever had. And now suddenly there's this influx of people that are holding people accountable and they don't know what to do, which is partly why the judge here has said, well, it was decorum and security I'm looking out for. There's been threats. She doesn't cite any of these threats.
Right.
There probably were threats. There's a lot of angry people in this case. But I don't think they know how to play in this new playing field. They're still playing by the old rules. Meanwhile, the world is working this way over here and the two are not colliding well.
Yeah, I mean, how about this? Play on the up and up.
Hey, what a thought.
If you do that, then you're going to be okay. If you're going to play the bullshit, you're going to get called on it. Cause you're right, T. I mean, like we are the modern media. We are the ones that are out there that are digging into these cases in these small towns that legacy media just it didn't meet their requirements because there wasn't an attractive blonde
or they died. Yeah.
Right. Right. Or it doesn't fit a particular political slant that they needed to, depending on what channel you're watching. Like all of that has been pushed to the wayside. And in terms of the criminal justice system, I look squarely at us as YouTube creators and podcasters that are out there. We are the new revolution. And we are the ones who are going to go out there and hold them accountable. I don't get into fucking politics at all on my channel. But what I do is I go out and I make sure that our Constitution is being upheld. And I hold people to account on that alone. And you know what? They're intertwined, you know, because due process in this country is mandatory. It's not optional. And that's the thing that's always getting impacted that I think of a lot of Americans are starting to understand what due process is and why it matters in probably a way that's more profound than at any point in the history of the country, just because they're watching it unfold day after day after day
in real time.
And it's one of those things where we are the ones who I think have been charged with holding people accountable for their actions. And, you know, for those that are old school and of the old guard, it's adapt or die. Because we're here to stay, and we're coming for you, you know. And it's like you and I aren't afraid to say shit. I'm not afraid to say a damn thing.
I don't have to worry about, you know, Larry's Oldsmobile not advertising on the program.
Exactly.
You know, and that's how, and that was the caveat. That was the thing.
It was huge.
That for so many years, and I don't think a lot of people are even aware of this, you know, the local media, you wonder, well, why is that business? They like the owners involved in this or that or shady dealings. Why does local media never report on it? Because they need their advertising dollars.
And their hands were
survive.
tied. If you ever had any story like that, and I have won a couple of news awards for my news broadcasting when I worked in morning radio. God help me if I reported a story on such and such a business owner's wife getting a DUI. It was my ass hauled into the office and disciplined.
Yeah.
I'm not the one who drove drunk.
Yeah, right. It's not like I remember in Wichita, a car dealer that had a problem with children. And not reported on forever. Everybody knows the story. This dealership still exists. This guy's name is still on the dealership. His jackass son still runs it. And it's like, everybody knows the story. Everybody's just kind of like, it's too icky to talk about.
Yeah.
And because if you don't come see them today, they're not going to save you any money. You know, you got to save your money and you got to get the free hot dogs and balloons for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and people
but like you said, from the reporting aspect, that was the power they had in terms of, all right, I'm pulling our advertising budget from you, you know, and when you're talking about little newspapers, that was how they existed in terms of paying their reporters and their printers and keeping the printing presses running and all that shit. It was a requirement. I mean, it was it like fed off of that. And now that's just not the case, and so now those things don't exist in the world. And we really are the investigative reporters that seem to, like you said, 10, 15 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer, just died, because when 3 people on the planet own every legacy media company, and it's basically their narrative that they're putting out to the world, and whatever that may be, you've got to have another avenue. I mean, to me, YouTube is a godsend.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the new
really
journalism.
is. Yeah.
Look, every newspaper started with one person at some point in time.
Yep.
One person reporting the local news. It's just a reset. It's a reset, and it's being started again. I mean, look, that's, and it's just being rebuilt from the ground up for something that the general public pretended they didn't want or need. Guess what? You did.
Yeah. And there's a thirst for it, man. Like people want to know. Like people
and then they're shot, and then people have had a good, last 15 years going, why does all these things going on in my community? Because no one's holding anyone accountable.
Yeah, why am I all of a sudden feeling uncomfortable? Why are people looking into my shit now? Like, well,
exactly.
It's the other shoe has dropped, so.
Let's strip away the judicial drama for a minute and the Aaron Spencer case, as he's still obviously facing a second-degree murder charge. The prosecution says he killed Michael Fosler. The defense says he saved his 14-year-old daughter from a man who was out on bond for allegedly essaying her, a man who had no business being anywhere near her. Spencer told authorities Fosler lunged at him with something in his hand after Spencer rammed his truck off the road at 1 a.m. Now, with the new judge taking over and the trial date up in the air, both sides are recalibrating a little bit. Defense attorney Bob Motta is with us to help break all of this down. Let's start here with the charge itself. Second-degree murder in Arkansas requires purposefully causing death, but without premeditation. Given the circumstances, Spencer finds his daughter missing, locating her in Fosler's vehicle in the middle of the night, and the confrontation that followed. How strong is that charge on its face if we're going to go down this road of there's no premeditation here?
I think it was an overcharge, which I think prosecutors' offices are prone to do. I think they overcharge cases all the time. I think if they were going to charge anything, it should have been a manslaughter type charge. They're up against it, man, because here there's an affirmative defense. They're putting forth the defense of others in self-defense. And, several times on the statute or on the show, I've pulled the statute up and I've read it in terms of kind of the fit. I think it fits very neatly into the defense of other statute that's down in Arkansas. And I think it's going to be a tough case for them to prove, because ultimately, aside from Fosler and Spencer, the only other witness there is the daughter, so like she's going to be put in the incredibly uncomfortable position of having to, number one, relive her trauma. And number two, the incredible pressure of being on the stand, knowing, because she's old enough to know better, that her testimony essentially is her father's ticket to freedom, so
or not,
right? Yeah. So it's like that is a terrible place for that poor child to be in. And, coming out of this grooming situation, which we're going to get into, I'm sure, when we start talking a little deeper about what's going to happen here, I think in the next couple of weeks. But like the grooming aspect of this, and that expert that the defense has hired, her name's Carrie Landau, former Fed. I met her down in court. They had flown her in for that Friday hearing, which actually didn't occur. And she's a very learned person in the ways of grooming, and she is a real asset to any jury that is going to be presented with facts that talk about this concept of grooming in a way that it's going to educate them to the depths in which that impacts children who are susceptible to it, and just like how overwhelming that power is that abuser has over that child, man. It's like some voodoo shit. I'm
really glad to hear this, because I was so concerned that they were going to put her on the stand, the daughter, and make it seem like, she brought this all on herself. And got her dad into this situation, and victim blaming is what I was concerned with.
And
Which
they
is
might.
insane.
They still
Yeah,
might.
but- and that's where it's going to be very critical as to how, for lack of a better term, she performs on the stand.
Right.
And how she comes across. Because yes, like the facts are undeniable. She's a child. She was preyed on. She is a victim here. There is that's not up for debate. This wasn't a relationship.
Correct.
This wasn't some romance gone awry. As somehow the DA is somehow trying to frame this. So that's the facts. But you're dealing with human beings. You're dealing with human beings on a jury who, if presented the case that way, that this is some sort of relationship, that this is this, this is that, her testimony is going to mean a lot. What do we know about the daughter? We haven't heard a whole lot. Obviously, she's still a minor. But what do we know about her mindset in any of this? Do we know, does she understand that she is the victim of grooming? I mean, or because this could work the other way. We've seen this in other cases, and I'm not trying to, and this is not the fault of the daughter. As you were saying, it's some voodoo shit. The grooming and what you can convince people, and then to ungroom them, it's essentially brainwashing, and then try to unbrainwash someone at a very formidable age. So does she understand that she was the victim here? Does she understand that this wasn't a mutual relationship? Or is she sitting there like still kind of, again, I don't know the answer to this. Is she so brainwashed in this and groomed that she has feelings for the guy? I don't know where this is sitting, but all of those questions are going to matter. Is she on the same page as mom and dad on this?
We won't know until she testifies. Like I don't even know if Aaron and Heather, who are the child's parents, know fully. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and that's the thing where I'm talking about with this Carrie Landau, who's the expert. I had a pretty good understanding of grooming, but when Aaron or Michael wrote their most recent motion regarding getting her in and trying to really put out there for the record, for the appellate record, just how critical that particular issue is in terms of educating the jury on just how insanely devious grooming is. And it goes to exactly that thing that you're talking about, T, where when there's kids that are groomed to the extent to where they feel guilt after an outcry about getting the person in trouble that was their abuser. I mean, that tells you all you need to know because they're lost. And I mean, look, the age gap in this, like when you say it, it makes your skin crawl. Like just the thought of it, like a 67-year-old man, a 13-year-old girl at the time, but then when you start to understand the way that he got her hooks into her, the way that he establishes this relationship and starts building trust over time and making her feel like she's the most important person in the room all the time. It's a terrifying concept. And to think that months go by and that he is able to re-engage with her and get her hooked right back onto the line, just like she was prior to, even pre-outcry, is a terrifying concept, to the point where she's sneaking out of her home and or being taken out of the home without screaming her lungs out. Either way is a concept that I think if the state's going to go and take the approach that Stacey was talking about, where they're going to shift the blame and say, you know what, she was dressing provocatively. She was the one, she was luring him at. If they take that idiotic approach, it's going to explode in their face. And that's the thing that with Elmore on the bench, I think would have opened the door, because the only thing that happened in that hearing is that Erin Casanelli, who again is Aaron Spencer's defense attorney, she argued, look, I've said all along, this has to be a wait and see approach. I have to see what kind of evidence the state's going to put on in their case in chief before I will know exactly how much I need her to testify to, so that the jury understands that this kid was Svengali'd by this guy. She had no independent thought. Everything that she was doing was at the behest of this guy because that's how much he had his claws into her. She just was not capable of doing it. So we're going to find out, T. I mean, we're going to find out. And like, that's part of like, imagine being the Spencer family, like not knowing exactly where your child's head's going to be at when they get on that witness stand in those circumstances. And I have a feeling that this judge, who by all accounts is, like I said, he's been an advocate and a champion for children his entire time on the bench. I have a feeling, I'll be down there in the courtroom, I have a feeling he'll clear it, which he should when she takes the stand, because we want her feeling as comfortable as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
And we want her to be able to tell her truth, whatever that may be. And whatever that approach is in terms of the defense says, okay, well, look, she got on the stand and she said X, Y, and Z. We've got to explain to the jury why she's saying X, Y, and Z, because it'll be like a cognitive dissonance. Yeah, cognitive dissonance. And it'll be like they won't be able to understand, like, why is she saying that? And they're going to need that expert to go up there and explain exactly what's going on in her mind.
And you're going to be dealing with jurors and their own prisms and their own histories and their own 100%. Stories. And some are going to be able to look at this and go, my God, yeah, this kid was groomed. This is horrible. You may have some that were groomed, that are jurors, that maybe have been groomed as children, that hold shame, that hold, held a narrative of their own life, of their own story of, that's not what happened. With their own stories going, and telling themselves, no, I was a willing person just to survive, to make sense of the madness that maybe they were put through. And when you have prisms like that, sometimes they don't see reality on reality's terms, and that's where you get people who sometimes can then be empathetic to the predatory behavior. That's the scary thing, especially, and I think that's the sick part of the state here on this, with the DA even like going down that road and kind of exploring these angles pre-trial of it's a relationship, it's a this, it's no, it's not, you fucking idiots. It's a predator on a child. That's it. End of story. Full stop. There's nothing else that was going on there. But again, we're dealing with people, so we don't know where that all goes. Spencer says Fosler lunged at him with something in his hand. It is in a self-defense case or a defense of others claim. How critical is that detail in this, other than he rammed him off the road and then emptied his clip into the guy? I mean, I would think, he's got your daughter in the truck. He's coming at you in your vehicle, and you got the gun, and you see the opportunity, so you take it because you don't know what he has. Again, this on paper just looks like so kind of cut and dry. He kidnapped the kid. The guy was coming at the dad who called him out and caught him. So of course he shot him. What else was he supposed to do? Gee, I wonder what you have. Take your shot. Good luck. I mean,
let's head to Starbucks and talk this out. Yeah. What do you do?
Look, and it depends. I think they're going to lean more heavily into the defense of others aspect, as opposed to the self-defense aspect. And again, that statute, they're different, because ultimately what really is the thing that the jury has to decide. The entire case hinges on the decision of the jury and whether they believe that Aaron Spencer was reasonable in what he believed. Like it's one of those cases, and I always find these to be the most fascinating in terms of self-defense cases or defense of other cases, because it's not a whodunit. We know who did it. The question is were they reasonable in their belief, and what did they know in terms of leading up to that situation? Because that's all fair game in terms of admissibility. What Aaron Spencer knew about Fosler and about the situation leading up to that moment in time is highly relevant. And it plays a major part in determining the way that Aaron Spencer responded. Was that reasonable in light of not only the fact that he gets out charging at him, probably screaming, maybe with something in his hand, but you also get to factor in everything else that Aaron Spencer was thinking as he's chasing this guy down the road for 6 miles. Like, with his daughter in the car at 1 a.m, and some, dark road in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Like,
he's sitting there weighing everything in his mind, too, especially ramming the car off the road, too. His daughter's in it. So you can't be too crazy with this. Even if you don't care if you die, your daughter's there. There's so many things that would have gone through his mind at that moment in time. The prosecution won the 404B motion earlier, allowing statements that Spencer made 3 months before the shooting. Basically, I'll kill him if he comes near her again. And not, I'm going to go stalk him down in his house and take his life. More so, a statement any parent would make if the predator that has been violating your child was just caught. I would kill them too if they came near my child again. What is he supposed to say? Well, what a misguided old man. I hope he finds the Lord. I mean, what the fuck is he supposed to say? Of course a parent is going to say that. And guess what? He showed up again.
Right.
So that's not premeditation. This guy walked into he should have known if he goes and tries to take the child of the person that he's already been violating, he may die. He may die. That should have been a consideration on Fosler's part. Obviously, it wasn't.
Or was it?
Or was it?
You know what I mean? Like, because my thing about Fosler is that guy gave zero fucks.
Was this a suicide?
That's a good point. Yeah.
He's 67. He's got 43 counts hanging over his head. For all intents and purposes, assuming he gets convicted, that is a life sentence. He is done. Yeah. He is never walking as a free man out of that prison ever again. So when he elects to violate the stay away order, which is to stay away from all kids like that. It was that was another part of Elmore in her shittiness in terms of how she handled this. She didn't even specifically name this victim. Like, she just made one general proclamation, stay away from all kids. And that's it. Don't stay away from their address. Don't stay away from anywhere that she might be. It's just one simple stay away order. He violated. He didn't give a shit. He's out on bond. If they find out, as soon as they find out he's violated, bond rescinded, he's sitting awaiting trial in jail. This guy did not care. He did not care. What if it was a compulsion? I don't know. I don't care. That's not my problem. Is if I'm sitting in Aaron Spencer's shoes, all I know is that this guy doesn't give a fuck. Yeah, he does not care. And in my mind, I've got to do whatever I can to save my kid's life, because this guy is never going to stop. Yeah. It's that simple.
Clearly not. Is there anything here? Obviously, we got the new judge on the case now. It's going to take some time for all this to settle. Is there any lever that's going to be pulled here, can be pulled here? How much influence does the judge have behind the scenes with the DA and the prosecution at this point to maybe right the ship? Maybe go, hey, guys, drop the charges. This is insane. And let's wash our hands and actually get back to prosecuting real criminals. What a novel thought.
Here's my opinion. I mean, you've got the House of Representatives where 14 reps write a letter, which is incredibly powerful. That's where you've got.
How often does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, that case, and they were careful. It was carefully worded. They're basically saying, we just want to make sure that Aaron Spencer gets a fair trial here. Whether or not that swayed the Arkansas Supreme Court, I don't know. I doubt it. I think that they had their own thoughts on the issue. But to your point, T, is there a world that exists where judges are going to state's attorneys and saying, and probably a three-way conference with both attorneys, if the judge is of the mindset, hey, state, you may want to rethink this one. And I'm not making any kind of threats here. I'm just looking at at this point from the outside looking in, but I'm about to be on the inside of it. Seems like you got a tough case here, a real tough case. Public sentiment is not behind you, and facts are not behind you. So, like, maybe state you want to take another peek at this and decide whether or not you want to go forward with it. So I fully expect that conversation to take place if that, in fact, is what the judge is thinking, which, again, as a judge who is known to have been a true champion of children, I think that that's probably where he's going to land on this thing. And I mean, who knows? Like at this point, if the state is so dug in, and this is where that fucking ugly money or the concept of money comes in. Oh, we've already sunk $500,000 into trying this case. There's no backing out at this point. We're going to take our shot. And if we don't win, well, so be it. Then the public's happy anyway. So I don't know, man. I mean,
so they're probably not going to drop the case because they've got too much invested at this point.
I mean, that's kind of where my head's at with it. I just don't know if they're going to be willing to do it when they've, because money matters to them.
Sure.
When you're talking about the resources and we're talking about the taxpayers' money, what are they going to do? We're going to drop the charges. You're going to have some angry taxpayers saying, "What the fuck? You should never have charged them to begin
exactly.
with."
It never should have gone to this point anyway.
Right.
So ridiculous.
Like I'm worried that they're at the point of no return. But if there's somebody in that office, and I'm talking about the prosecutor's office, because they're ultimately the ones that are going to make that call, that says, you know what, man, like we just lost our security blanket and Judge Elmore. Like, this is not going to go well for us. And we're going to have, like, maybe there has to be some reversals in terms of motions to reconsider of some of the things that Judge Elmore ruled in favor of the state on, to where they're like, man, we're fucked here. Like, we're in deep trouble here. We've got to rethink this thing. And, in light of the rulings that have just come down, we just don't think we're going to be able to get there and make our case. So why don't we stop the bleeding in terms of wasting public funds on this thing by going all the way through a trial, which trials aren't free. I mean, people don't understand. You're paying for every cop that's testifying, the judges, the prosecutors, all the resources that they're spending on flying experts out, doing all that stuff. That is all taxpayer money. Trials they cost money. They're expensive. So, I mean, does the possibility exist? 100% it does. Do I think it's going to happen? I hope it does, because it's the right thing to do. But you've got to prepare for trial if you're his attorneys, and if you're Aaron Spencer and Heather. You've got to hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
You made a good point there. Money matters, and it shouldn't when it's something like this, but it does when they get so dig in. The other thing that matters is exposure. Yes. And I saw this comment, and I'm going to pull it up here. They are scared Aaron will win and uncover their secrets.
Saw that.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what they are. Maybe there's none. I don't know. But we seem to have a lot of little communities like this. Delphi was one of them. This seems to be one of them, where there's something going on behind the scenes. And why there would be this amount of people wanting to go after a dad for second-degree murder in the vengeance of a known, not convicted, but accused child predator who clearly has a track record, allegedly, from other folks too, where he came from. There's stories coming out there too. Obviously, he wasn't convicted, blah, 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 blah. He's dead. But there's that aspect of it here where exposure, it's kind of coming at them in two places. Their security blanket judge is gone. The guy's running for sheriff. And if he wins, well, guess what? There'll probably be a little bit of cleaning house there, and there might be some stories that come to light that some folks don't want to be exposed. And I'm wondering how much that's playing a key role in this as to why they're continuing to push this square peg through the circle hole. I'm just wondering if they're going to realize at some point, any way you play this with attention is not good for you. Not good for the institution, not good for the group of folks that don't want their stuff being exposed. Because again, as I say a gazillion times, I don't know anyone that defends predators like this other than predators. And I'm not saying anybody is a predator, but I am saying it's curious.
Yeah,
it's a little curious.
It's super curious.
Like, why? Like, why are you doing this? Because the common sense thing here is, why? Why are you doing this? Are you trying to send a message to other people that are going to go after predators not to do it because the city's going to shut it down, the DA is going to shut it down? Or is this just one bad ruling after another that's now snowballed on top of each other, and nobody wants to look like the dipshit that started the snowball? Yeah. I don't know.
Dude,
it's hard to know.
It is hard to know. And let me tell you this, I was down there for a mere 36 hours. And one of the things that I was going to be doing and that I will do when I get back down there is I'm going to be talking to the people.
Yeah.
And I can tell you in the short period of time, I will be talking to some interesting people that have a lot of things to say about Lonoke County, Arkansas, and about what's been going on in that area for a long, long time. I'm going to have some really interesting information that is all going to be factual, that I'm going to be putting out there, that people are going to want to hear. It goes to exactly what you're saying, T. It goes exactly to like what who's trying to sweep what under the rug and why.
Exactly. There's rumblings. I'm sure you've gotten them. I've gotten them from folks in that part of the state. And it's like, all you can take it for is unsolicited emails right now. But if you can investigate it further, you can dig further. That's going to be fascinating.
Yep.
That's going to be fascinating. And some people should be scared. Because I think there's some stuff to uncover.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing awful shit, you need to be exposed.
Yeah, your time is coming, and you can thank your DA for going after after a father,
shining that bright light.
It could have been quiet. It could have been silent. Like nobody would have been paying attention if they would have just been like, "Yeah, he did the right thing."
Right.
Y'all could have continued on in your little depraved way of doing things, but you had to draw the attention. You had to go,
the hell
not
aren't
us.
having a 45-minute live about it if they don't charge Aaron Spencer. So miscalculation.
Sorry, fuckers.
Somebody. Yep.
Michael McKee pled not guilty just the other day to 4 counts of aggravated murder and the deaths of his ex-wife, Monique Tepe, and her husband, Spencer Tepe. Didn't say a word. His attorney, Diane Menashe, spoke for him, and that's where this conversation starts, because the choice of an attorney tells you everything you need to know about where this case is going and how it's going to be fought. Menashe is a 27-year veteran of criminal defense in Columbus. In 2022, she called the defense of Dr. William Husel, a Mount Carmel physician charged with murdering 14 ICU patients through allegedly lethal fentanyl doses. She called one witness, and Husel was acquitted on all 14 counts. That's who McKee hired. Another doctor facing murder charges, another case where the evidence seemed overwhelming. And another opportunity for Menashe to do what she does best, pick apart the prosecution's case and let it collapse under its own weight. The question now is whether she can do it again, because the evidence police have, it's substantial. Ballistics linking a weapon from McKee's Chicago condo to shell casings at the scene. Vehicle tracking from Columbus back to Illinois. Surveillance footage allegedly showing McKee in the alley behind the Tepe home. A firearm suppressor, no forced entry. An 8-year gap between the divorce and the killings that raises more questions than it answers. Bob Motta is with us to break all this down. Bob, when you hire her as your attorney, are you hiring her to win the case, or are you hiring her to see if maybe in 37 or so years you get a chance at getting out? What do you think is the strategy here?
Yeah, she's not a pleading lawyer. So she's going to take it to trial. And, you know, what she does, her philosophy, and a lot of lawyers do this. And you know, it's kind of a pick your poison type thing, but she is a master at dismantling the state's case, and she picks it apart piece by piece by piece, and it's effective. You know, I mean, we saw it with Husel, like she attacked the intent requirement in that statute exclusively, like that she focused her entire defense on the intent, that the state could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that one critical aspect of the statute. And she won it because she was right. They couldn't prove his intent. I mean, intent is difficult. And if she's able to give enough reasonable explanations as to, you know, the missed dosage, whatever the case may be, in terms of how these people ended up dying, where he's not denying that he gave them the dosages, but they couldn't prove that his intent was to kill them.
Was he just bad at math? I had my cat at the vet yesterday, and I just, well, but it happens. And I'm telling you, I had my cat at the vet yesterday, and they prescribed a medication, and I kind of cocked my head and went, wait, that seems really high. And she goes, no, that'll be fine. Well, my doctor today messaged me and said, do not dose your cat at that medication level. Yeah. It happens.
Let me ask you this, Stace. At what point does the hospital step in and say, hey, fuckhead, you've killed 4 people. with this fentanyl shit. Like, what are you like? How does it get to the point where 14 people are losing their lives by this merchant of death going in there and just being a really, really bad doctor? Or he's a complete sociopath who was killing his patients. I don't know, and we never will know because he can't be tried again. But I mean, in terms of what Menashe does, I mean, it's a good hire. Different factual scenario, though.
Very different case. I mean, that case is one thing. Here you have ballistics, vehicle tracking, surveillance footage. How do you translate that approach here?
It's going to be tough. I mean, she's going to have to do it piece by piece. She's going to have, look, we've got the Nibbin, where they're claiming there's a match. That's a first step. Okay. And as a defense attorney, I scoff at that. I scoff at, I think that, to be honest, tool mark comparisons in general is under fire in terms of litigation. I think they've got a ways to go in order for that to become reliable science that people can feel comfortable convicting somebody and sending them to prison for the rest of their lives based almost exclusively on that type of evidence. But that's the next step that has to take place. So you get the match, the Nibbin match, but then you've got to have it sent off to the lab, and they've got to actually see if there's significant agreement with a lab tech who's really good at doing that. And even in that situation, that is still a subjective opinion. I mean, when you can have 10 different people doing the examinations and they can all come up with 10 different things, that is subjectivity defined. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, to me, that's going to be one thing she's going to attack. To me, saying, all right, well, I know that this looks like his car. We have the video of him walking in this alley, but is it him?
Well, I mean, I think GPS is going to answer a lot of those questions, Right. I mean, so, and there's like really no way around a lot of these things where it's like, I'm not 100%, but I'm going to go on a night. I would bet money that they're going to have enough evidence that shows him going to and from his home to their home, the 325 miles both ways. And how are you going to argue that? Oh, I thought I'd go for a drive 650 miles worth in the middle of the night to my ex-wife of a decade ago, just happened to be near her house, and then I decided to turn around, got a Coke down at the 7-Eleven and came back.
Hey, listen, listen. Maybe he was driving. We heard about this kind of their divorce resurfacing. Yeah, like right before. Maybe he was trying to get a hold of her. And she's
in the middle of the night.
No,
they're murdered.
He's calling her to say, "What the fuck is this?" And she's not answering him. She's like blocking him. He's like, "You know what? I'm gonna drive down there and just." I'm like, "Well, is this a mistake?" Maybe he was just
doing a welfare
in the middle of the night.
He's doing his own welfare check on her.
Or he just wanted to ask her. He's like, "Is this something that you did? You're not answering my call, so I had to make the drive down here just to ask you." And I just happened to get down here. I was on duty. Bob, I was at the hospital. I was working.
Here's the reality of that to you and me. That looks utterly fucking insane.
Ridiculous.
And to anybody with a healthy brain.
Ridiculous. It's
to a brain like that, totally fucking logical. If something set him off at that moment in time, on that day, whatever it may be, because although this does look rather more premeditated than that, but let's just say he's watching old movies or he sees a pic, something, maybe the divorce thing, the clerical error that made it active for a moment, whatever, something. And then that voice in his head, that itch he has to scratch, because this is a guy who scratches his itches no matter what.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. He's going to scratch it to his own detriment, even if it means ripping his fucking ear off. He will scratch it because that's what he has to do, in my opinion. That could be true. It really could be the logic of he needs to go address this and get that answer now and get it checked off in his head. It doesn't matter if he's interrupting someone's life. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. It doesn't matter how uncomfortable. As long as he gets that piece of peace back in his mind, in his fucked up, chaotic brain that won't let him stop, that's all he needs. And he doesn't, the means to which he has to go to get there, he doesn't see. He doesn't see how crazy it looks to everybody else because he's very narrowly on that path to do that. But the thing is, he had a gun. He went into the house allegedly, with a silencer and shot them. He didn't show up empty-handed to like, hey, how you doing? Let's go to Starbucks. Oh, nothing? Okay, great. I'm glad you're doing great. Good to see you and the kids. You're like, not that. That's not what happened.
Some people carry guns all the time. I mean, there are concealed carries, and some people have guns on them all the time. Look, she doesn't have to prove anything. I'm talking about Menashe, right?
Yeah,
she doesn't have to prove that that's true. All she has to do is plant seeds. And say, for instance, like something had to have been the trigger. After all that time, after this guy, is going about his life, like killing his patients, committing malpractice, getting in weird relationships, making women super uncomfortable. And, it's like, but something's the trigger in this mishap with the pleading where that thing resurfaces. To me, if I'm Menashe, I'm looking at that pretty heavily and I'm saying, all right. And then I'm kind of like landing right on that argument that you're talking about. Like it was just something that was driving him nuts, and he couldn't get a fucking answer. He couldn't get her to answer the phone. And he's like, I'm going to drive down there, because the other part of this that is really the only mystery to me is the unforced entry. Yeah. Like, how the fuck does he get into that house?
Why is that such a big thing to everybody?
Because most people lock their damn doors.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. Look.
I don't think that's a true statement. There's a good chunk of people who don't. I do, but there's a good chunk of the population that doesn't. I know, Stacey, you do, and you have Home Alone traps set up in your house. It's like fucking Kevin McAllister over there.
There's somebody in my life that doesn't lock their doors, and I have this argument all the time. Like, lock your damn doors.
But the thing is, this isn't like, I don't know, that to me is like such a nothing burger in this case. You're the defense attorney, though, Bob, so help me understand why there is weight there, because every time I see this come up, every time I'm working on a story on this, it's like, that's a big thing. I'm like, maybe they just left their fucking door unlocked and he opened it, or he had a credit card, or he knew how to pick a lock because he watched a YouTube video. Like, none of this is like rocket science or all that important to me. I mean, if he picked the lock and got in some way, that's certainly important. But if it's just like the door was unlocked, then the door was unlocked.
Yeah, maybe. But when I kind of looked up that neighborhood, and it had been going,
it's being gentrified, but it's still a place you lock your door.
Yeah. So the mayor pre-arrest of McKee was saying that it used to be one of the highest crime neighborhoods in all of Columbus.
A long time ago. That was some time ago.
Yeah. So now it's re-gentrified. It's safer. He was saying that it's one of the safest neighborhoods in all of Columbus. Now, that being said, it's a matter of habit. Okay. Yeah. Like, I live way out, like I'm 40 miles west of the city of Chicago. I live in a town that's the equivalent of Mayberry. When I lived here for the first 10 years, I never locked my door. Then, there was like a little car, and it wasn't even a car theft ring. They were just going into people's cars and stealing their change and their shit that people were. So, and they kept hitting our areas. I'm like, all right. Sure. You know what? I'm gonna start locking the door. So that became my habit. Whereas I never locked my door. I felt like it was a very safe area. It was like, it wasn't something that was pressing on my mind. I'd go up to bed and I'd forget to lock my door. And day after day after day, I woke up and there was no issue with it. If she can find somebody that can say that it was their habit to lock the door, if there exists this person on the planet, it then creates an issue for them, because it's curious because of the time of night that this happens. I saw somebody in here is talking about, like you can Google how to defeat any digital lock that exists. Maybe, but the state, are they going to find that in his Google search? If they find that in his Google search, then we've got that problem solved, though.
Or they let the golden doodle out and somebody forgot to lock the fucking door.
That's always possible.
You know what? It happens to me a lot. I mean, or if they have kids. I mean, one of them, I don't think they're letting the dog out. One of them was at 4, probably not letting the dog out. But adults, I mean, I do. I mean, look, I have gazillions of cameras. Every fucking angle of this property is filmed 24/7. But I also have 3 dogs, and sometimes they go to the bathroom late at night, and sometimes I'm kind of groggy and I think I locked the door, and sometimes I didn't. Yeah. And the morning I'm like, oh shit, I really got to do better at that. And I do for the most part, but it's not perfect every night. And he may have hit the house a night where it was unlocked. That's why, again, it's just in a normal life when you're not anticipating someone breaking in and murdering you. Which I don't know that she really was. I know she talked of, having some fear, but I don't know. This is after the fact. I don't know that every day she was trembling in fear that he was going to show up and kill them. Maybe she was. But if you're not and you're just kind of going about your life,
well, that's my point, T. If you're Menashe, those are the kind of the minutia that I'm digging into. I'm trying to find out, was he trying to communicate with her after he gets notice that this thing has kind of like popped back up with respect to their divorce? But
again, it's several months after the fact too. This wasn't like last week it happened and then he killed her.
Yeah, but if he's obsessively trying to hit her up because it's really fucking bugging him,
it's a window in. Yeah.
Well, it's a window in for him, but more importantly for her, she's going to be like, oh, Crazy Town's back in my life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, which would lead me to think that she probably would lock the door, because whatever she was feeling after the 7 months when she decided to end that marriage was pretty profound. Like somebody has to really, really suck in order for you to end your marriage after 7 months. I mean, like huge levels of suckage. Either they've cheated or you've married the wrong person and you didn't realize until after you said I do, and you're like, holy shit.
I've done that. I've done it after 7 months, and luckily we both agreed, and it was just annulled. So, but Tepe in this case, but Monique he didn't want the divorce, so it turned into a divorce and not just an annulment. The 8-year gap, though, is that going to be one of the strongest cards to the defense? The fact that if other than just the clerical error that happened on the court side, if there's nothing, and who knows what we're going to find here in the digital footprint, that's going to be very telling. But if there's nothing, no communication, that seems, I'm going to guess that's probably going to be the strongest defense card of, there's no digital history of him doing anything. Suddenly just one day he decides, boom, I'm going to go stalk her down and kill her.
Like, here's the thing with McKee. You look at him when he gets arrested, he's got this fucking square jaw blockhead, looks like a total psychopath now.
Which looks different than his pictures like 7 months ago.
That's what I'm saying. Like, when you're looking at this guy, like when he's like just months, 6, 7 months, a couple of years prior, like a relatively decent looking guy. I'm sure he's a fucking doctor. He's a vascular surgeon. The guy theoretically is a catch, probably in a lot of different worlds for women. Like, all right, this guy's a successful dude. He's not like impossible to look at.
Yeah.
Like, so like he doesn't give that vibe of like he's this brooding fucking troll who just is still just can't get over the fact she divorced me, just where he has this build up and he's scrolling her Facebook and like, this fucking bitch, I think I just don't get any of that vibe. So like, that's to me when I'm trying to figure out what the trigger is, and the only thing that seems to make any kind of sense to me, even though it doesn't make any sense, is that pleading, like that thing popping back up to where maybe you're talking about like he's a wound collector. Well, maybe that wound gets reopened, and he's like, oh man, and he starts obsessing it over. I don't know, man, but it's a tough case for Menashe. I'll tell you that.
I get a vibe out of this guy, and it's not pure in terms of what I'm about to say. I get incel-y type vibe out of this guy. Not that he's an incel, because I don't think he qualifies as that. But I get the wound collector, the woe is me, the I've been rejected, it's women's problem, I'm this Because in his mind, he is the successful man. He is the man that women should just be swooning over and just happy to be in his presence of. And the fact that this woman rejected him a decade ago seems to be something he didn't get over very well. And there doesn't seem to be a track record in 8 years of many successful relationships. The one that we have heard about, if in fact that video was true, of someone who claims that she dated him, was that he was very surface level and it was pretty boring. Like, he didn't let anybody get close to him. So I kind of get that, woe is me, it's everybody else's fault of everything, kind of that women hating incelish. Again, that's my conjecture. That's kind of the feeling I get out of this dude.
And I'm not too far afield from that. Like, I get more and this isn't to cast aspersions on doctors, but a lot of them are a bit narcissistic. A lot of them do have a God complex. And I assure you, this guy had a God complex. Like that guy who's just like, he doesn't understand. I think what we're going to find out is he's a massive narcissist, and that he doesn't understand rejection in any capacity, because that ain't me. He hasn't
experienced it.
You're rejecting me? Like what? Like, am I crazy? Like, he's going to be that guy. And I think ultimately the state is going to have to put some evidence in of kind of who he was in order to really sew it up. But man, the death knell for the defense on this case to me is that silencer, man. That thing. Yeah. That because it defeats my argument. Oh yeah, he's just a conceal and carry guy.
Okay, you can't just go pick up a silencer. Yeah, I mean, there is a process.
Exactly. Why did he keep the gun? If it's the gun, and I know we're talking about ballistics, but let's assume it is the gun. I have a thought on that. And my only thought on it is not that it's a souvenir, because most people will get rid of it. I don't think that she was going to be the last and he was going to be the last. I feel like this was going to be the Michael McKee execution tour, and anybody who had wronged him was on that list. That's my take.
You're saying I think my former client.
Yeah, I think those folks that had the civil suits against him were next. I think anybody who wronged him at some point in his life were going to be on that list, because again, as you said, it's narcissism. And as we know on this show and yours and everything we do, all roads lead to narcissism.
Always, man. Yeah. And like dude, it's almost on like all fours with Anthony Garcia. Like you had the 7-year gap from when he's fired. He's a doctor. Yep. He had issue, and the state was able in our case to get in all of the issues of what was going on during his residency at Creighton. Like when he was working in the pathology department, that shit all came in because that was their theory. That he had held this, like harbored this animus towards these people who had ruined his career. And in the meantime, he was a guy who really didn't give a shit about being a doctor. Like that wasn't like it was his life dream. And then, he does exactly what your feeling is on McKee. Like this dude went on the tour 5 years later, comes back, does it again. They claim their theory was that he was heading down to Louisiana, where he had gone and gotten into another residency down there, which they fired him, that he was on the way down there. They found 2 guns in his car on the way down, that he was going to kill the people that had fired him down there, that he was on his murder tour for all those people so it's eerily similar in a lot of different ways to that. And it's going to be curious to see what's going to be admissible in terms of what they're going to allow in terms of his background. You know, you can't use character witness to show propensity. You know, like that's not what you can use it for. But in order to kind of get them to a place as to why, which they don't have to prove, but everybody wants to know why, right? I mean, it's always the burning question for all of us. Like, why? Why did he do this?
It's amazing how eerily similar these characters can be. It's almost, and I learned about this when I first started learning about like borderlines and narcissists years ago. Everyone I talked to, psychologists and stuff, always joked, it's like they all go to the same convention and learn the same tactics and the same shit. And they all think they're just so unique and so just profound in their ways of thinking and their tactics, yet they all do the same sort of shit over and over. And it bites them in the ass and destroys them every goddamn time. Yep. Bob Motta, defense attorney, host of the podcast Defense Diaries. Get it, press subscribe wherever you download podcasts. and YouTube and Buried.
Buried.
Yes, I'm to the. It's taken me forever to get to the end of Devil in Disguise, but if you've watched that on Peacock, you have to check out Bob's podcast, Buried. Give them the quick pitch on that.
It's real quick. It's buried inside the John Wayne Gacy's investigation. My dad was Gacy's trial lawyer back in 1980. Gave me all his taped interviews with Gacy, prepping him for his insanity defense case. I dug in. I interviewed all the old cops. It's an amazing tale, and one that I think you'll enjoy. It's worth your time. Check it out.
And your dad is in it. This is, you see Bob Motta Sr. in it, and this is obviously his son here. Same stash.
It's genetic. I love it.
Yeah,
same stash. There you go. Anyway, check it out wherever you get podcasts. Press subscribe. Very good listen. All right, and you guys, let's continue the conversation off the air. Give us your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube, on our videos. Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi is where you can find us there, or on our Substack. The link is in the description. It's hiddenkillers.substack.com. Advanced ad-free episodes, all there for you, and it's free as of right now. So do check that out, and let's continue this conversation off the air. Until next time, for Bob, Stacy, and Todd, I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.